Most people waste their lives comparing, competing, and criticizing others, when the truth is, the only person you're truly in competition with is the person staring back at you in the mirror. The moment you master yourself, you master your future. Comparison is one of the greatest thieves of joy, progress, and self-mastery. It may seem harmless at first glance. We scroll through social media, look at someone else's success, their lifestyle, their achievements, and instantly begin to measure our worth against theirs. But in reality, comparison is a silent poison. It creeps into your mind without warning and begins to erode your confidence, distort your perspective, and sabotage your potential. The truth is, every time you measure yourself against someone else's journey, you are essentially abandoning your own. You stop running your race and start running theirs, forgetting that the lanes were never the same to begin with. You see, life is not a universal race where everyone starts at the same line, has the same opportunities, and moves toward the same destination. Life is unique to each individual. Your path, your struggles, your timing, and your destiny are all yours alone. But the moment you allow comparison to dictate your pace, you rob yourself of the authenticity and uniqueness that was designed to set you apart. When you live in comparison, you are constantly chasing shadows. You look at someone who appears to be further along and think you are behind. You see someone who is younger than you and already successful, and you assume you are late. You watch someone who has a talent you don't have, and suddenly you feel less capable, less valuable, and less worthy. But what you fail to see is the hidden part of their story, the struggles, sacrifices, and seasons of preparation that may never be visible to the outside world. Comparison makes you forget that every highlight reel is often built upon countless unseen failures, frustrations, and battles. It tricks you into believing that someone else's chapter 20 means you should be at the same level, even when you're still on chapter 2 of your own journey. That illusion creates unnecessary pressure and paralyzing self-doubt. It makes you rush the process instead of respecting the process. And nothing good grows when it is rushed. The real danger of comparison is that it distracts you from your personal growth. Imagine two plants growing side by side. One plant is taller, with more leaves, and appears healthier. The smaller plant begins to look at the taller one and wonders, why am I not like that? Instead of focusing on drawing nutrients from the soil, reaching for the sunlight, and developing at its own pace, it spends energy comparing. What happens? It weakens itself further. That's exactly what happens when you compare yourself to others. Your energy, which could be invested in learning, building, creating, and evolving, is wasted on measuring your worth against someone else's timeline. Success doesn't come from comparison. It comes from consistency, and consistency is only possible when your focus is directed inward, not outward. Another trap of comparison is that it keeps you in a cycle of competition that never ends. Because the truth is, there will always be someone who has more. More money, more recognition, more opportunities, more influence. If your sense of worth is tied to being better than others, you will always feel empty because the finish line will forever move further away. What starts as innocent admiration quickly becomes toxic envy, and envy breeds insecurity. That insecurity then drives destructive habits, either trying to copy others or giving up altogether because you feel like you'll never measure up. Neither option leads to self-mastery. Self-mastery is about creating, not copying. It's about building, not imitating. It's about becoming the fullest version of yourself, not a second-rate version of someone else. The only valid comparison you should ever make is between who you were yesterday and who you are today. Did you grow? Did you improve? Did you push yourself to learn something new? Did you step outside your comfort zone? That's the race worth running. That's the competition that fuels progress without destroying your spirit. When you measure against yourself, you're playing a game you can win. You begin to celebrate small victories, and those victories compound over time into greatness. But when you measure against others, you're playing a game where the rules are rigged. because you're using someone else's scoreboard to measure your worth. And when you live by someone else's scoreboard, you'll never feel good enough. It is also important to understand that comparison often creates a distorted lens. When you look at others, you only see what they allow you to see. Social media, public appearances, success stories, these are carefully curated. Nobody posts their failures, their sleepless nights, their moments of doubt, or their silent battles. Comparison convinces you that their life is perfect, while yours is broken. But in reality, every single person is fighting battles you cannot see. When you understand that truth deeply, comparison loses its power. Instead of envy, you begin to cultivate empathy. Instead of wishing for someone else's story, you begin to respect your own. Comparison also blinds you to your own gifts. You might be comparing yourself to someone else in an area where you were never meant to shine. Imagine a fish comparing itself to a bird, feeling worthless because it cannot fly. But the moment that fish embraces its own nature and realizes it was designed for water, not air, it begins to thrive. You have unique strengths, talents, and experiences that no one else on this planet can replicate. But comparison keeps you from discovering them because you're too busy trying to imitate someone else's path. Self-mastery demands that you embrace your uniqueness fully and unapologetically. Only then can you step into the fullness of your potential. Every time you feel comparison rising in your heart, remember this: your journey is sacred. The setbacks, the delays, the struggles, the wins, they are all part of the process that is shaping you. What looks like being behind today might actually be preparation for something greater tomorrow. What feels like less than may be exactly what sets you apart in the long run. Success is not about arriving at the destination first. It's about arriving fully prepared for when your moment comes. And that preparation happens when you stay in your lane, focus on your growth, and refuse to let comparison steal your energy. Every day you wake up, you are given a limited supply of energy, just like you are given a limited supply of money. The way you choose to spend that energy will determine the quality of your results, your relationships, and ultimately your success. Most people fail to recognize this simple truth. Energy is currency. Just as you would never waste money on things that bring no return, you must also learn not to waste your energy on activities, thoughts, or people that rob you of progress. The tragedy is that too many individuals invest their energy into gossip, negativity, doubt, jealousy, and endless distractions. They pour their attention into television, social media scrolling, arguing with strangers online, or competing with others, while their dreams remain underfunded, starving for the very energy they have been mismanaging. Energy is powerful, but it must be directed with intention. When you begin to see energy as currency, your perspective shifts. You realize that every word you speak, every thought you dwell on, every emotion you entertain is either an investment or an expense. Some things give you energy: reading a powerful book, practicing gratitude, exercising, building your skills, praying, meditating, or working on your craft. Other things drain you: complaining, comparing, worrying, entertaining toxic people, or indulging in fear. Just like financial wealth grows through wise investments, your personal growth compounds when you choose to invest your energy in things that fuel your vision. The principle is simple, but life-changing. Where your energy flows, results will grow. If you want a better body, invest your energy in consistent movement and healthy choices. If you want a stronger business, invest your energy in strategy, learning, and execution. If you want deeper relationships, invest your energy in presence, listening, and empathy. But if your energy is scattered in distractions, wasted in bitterness, or drained by environments that suffocate your spirit, you will always feel bankrupt in the areas that matter most. Many people walk through life tired not because they have done too much, but because they have wasted their energy on the wrong things. It's not the long hours of purposeful work that drain you. It's the endless hours of doing things that don't align with your purpose. Think about how you feel after spending 3 hours arguing, worrying, or scrolling through negative content. You feel exhausted, yet nothing productive was achieved. Now compare that with spending 3 hours building something you care about, learning something new, or serving others with passion. Yes, you might be physically tired, but you are mentally and spiritually fueled. The difference lies in the return. One drains without giving back, the other multiplies what you put in. That is why treating your energy as currency is essential, because wasted energy is the fastest way to poverty in every area of life. The key to mastering this principle is awareness. Start tracking where your energy goes the way you would track your expenses. Who do you talk to daily, and do those conversations build you or break you? What kind of content do you consume, and does it inspire you or drain you? How do you spend your mornings and evenings, and do those routines strengthen you or weaken you? Without awareness, you will continue to leak energy into places that do not serve your destiny. With awareness, you begin to redirect energy into things that multiply. Energy is a form of compound interest. The more you invest it wisely, the greater the exponential returns over time. Small daily deposits into your physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual health accumulate into massive results, while constant withdrawals into negativity accumulate into burnout, frustration, and regret. It's also important to understand that some people in your life act as energy deposits, while others act as energy withdrawals. Deposits are those who encourage, inspire, and challenge you to rise higher. Withdrawals are those who complain constantly, criticize endlessly, and drain you with negativity. If energy is currency, then toxic relationships are like debt. They keep you trapped, drained, and unable to build. Protecting your energy doesn't make you selfish. It makes you a wise steward of the greatest asset you have. If you allow everyone to have access to your energy, you will never have enough left to fund your dreams. Boundaries are like budgets. They help you direct your limited resources toward things that truly matter. Energy management also requires you to master the art of focus. Focus is how you maximize the value of your energy. Scattered energy is like spending $100 in pennies across 10,000 different places. You won't see any meaningful return. But concentrated energy is like making a focused investment into one powerful opportunity. It compounds and grows. When you spread yourself too thin, dabbling in too many things at once, you dilute the strength of your energy. But when you narrow your focus on one thing, your energy amplifies, and the results are far greater than the effort. That is why clarity is essential. Without knowing what you want, you cannot know where to direct your energy. And without direction, your energy will always be wasted. Another truth is that energy attracts energy. When you invest your energy in positivity, gratitude, and growth, you naturally attract opportunities, people, and environments that align with that vibration. But when you spend your energy on negativity, doubt, and fear, you attract more of the same. Just as financial investments grow in the direction you place them, energetic investments shape the environment around you. The energy you project into the world is the energy that will be mirrored back to you. That is why it is not enough to manage energy privately. You must also manage the energy you put into conversations, workplaces, and communities. The words you speak, the attitude you carry, the actions you take, they are all energetic investments that influence not only your life, but also the lives around you. When you truly begin to value your energy as currency, you stop treating it casually. You no longer wake up and throw your energy into anything that demands it. Instead, you become intentional. You decide what deserves your energy and what does not. You decide which battles are worth fighting and which ones are distractions. You decide which projects deserve your time and which ones are simply noise. The most successful people are not always the ones with the most talent or the most resources. They are the ones who learn to manage their energy with discipline. They stopped wasting it on things that don't matter and started pouring it into things that do. One of the most common traps in life is the pursuit of approval. From the time we are children, we are taught to perform for recognition, to seek validation, and to measure our worth based on the reactions of others. A child draws a picture, and their first question is not, Do I love this? But do you like it? A student studies hard, and their sense of accomplishment is often tied to grades or praise from teachers and parents. As adults, this conditioning grows stronger. We buy things not always because we need them, but because of how others will perceive us. We post online, not simply to share, but to measure likes, comments, and applause. Yet approval is fleeting, fragile, and inconsistent. The same people who cheer you today may criticize you tomorrow. If your entire sense of self is anchored in external approval, your life will always be unstable, shifting with every opinion, every compliment, and every criticism. True strength does not come from chasing applause. It comes from building inner discipline, the kind of quiet strength that remains firm whether people are watching or not. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not always visible to the outside world. It happens in the unseen hours, when you wake up early to work on your goals while everyone else is sleeping, when you resist the temptation to take shortcuts, when you choose to remain consistent, even when you don't feel motivated. Discipline is the art of doing what must be done, regardless of whether anyone notices or praises you for it. Approval, on the other hand, is an unstable motivator. When your fuel comes from applause, you will only act when others are watching. You will only push forward when you feel celebrated. And the moment the applause stops, so will your progress. That is why building inner discipline is so vital, because it anchors your growth in something permanent, not temporary. When you operate from a place of inner discipline, you begin to realize that the only approval that truly matters is the approval you give yourself. You start to ask different questions. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" you ask, "Am I proud of me?" Instead of wondering, "Will they notice what I've done?" you reflect, "Did I honor my own standards?" This shift in mindset is powerful because it frees you from the exhausting treadmill of chasing validation. Life is too short to live for applause, and it is too important to waste on opinions. Discipline teaches you to move with integrity, to live by your principles, and to measure yourself against your own standards of excellence. Think about the greatest achievements in history. Behind every breakthrough, invention, or moment of greatness, there were years of unseen discipline. The athlete who wins the medal trained in silence for years when no one was watching. The musician who captivates an audience practiced relentlessly when there was no applause. The entrepreneur who builds a thriving company endured sleepless nights, sacrifices, and countless failures before the world celebrated their success. Approval came later. What sustained them in the dark seasons was discipline. Without discipline, approval is meaningless. But with discipline, approval becomes a natural byproduct rather than the main objective. Building inner discipline also requires you to embrace discomfort. Approval seeks comfort. It wants everything to be easy, pleasant, and pleasing to others. Discipline, however, thrives in discomfort. It pushes you to get up earlier, work harder, and face challenges you would rather avoid. It demands consistency when your emotions tell you to quit. And it strengthens you because every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are training your mind and body to obey your vision instead of your feelings. Approval is about being liked. Discipline is about becoming strong. Approval wants you to look good. Discipline wants you to be good. Another critical aspect of discipline is patience. Approval demands instant gratification. It craves quick results, immediate applause, and visible recognition. Discipline understands the power of delayed gratification. It is willing to put in the work today without seeing results tomorrow. It is willing to endure silence, setbacks, and seasons of obscurity because it knows the harvest will come if the seeds are faithfully watered. The world may not recognize your efforts today, but inner discipline reassures you that your future self will thank you. Those who build discipline without the need for immediate approval are the ones who last. They outgrow trends, outlast critics, and outperform expectations because they are not driven by the applause of the moment, but by the vision of the future. Approval also creates dependency, while discipline creates freedom. When you rely on external validation, you give others the power to control your emotions. One compliment lifts you up, and one criticism tears you down. Your happiness, confidence, and sense of worth are in someone else's hands. Discipline breaks that dependency. It allows you to operate with freedom, knowing that your worth is not determined by outside voices. You can face criticism without crumbling, and you can receive praise without becoming arrogant. Discipline stabilizes you because it is rooted in principles, not opinions. To build inner discipline, you must also develop routines and standards that align with your values. Standards are not set for others to applaud. They are set for you to live by. For example, you may set a standard to read daily, to exercise regularly, to save a portion of your income, or to commit a certain number of hours to your craft. These standards may not impress anyone in the short term, but over time, they create a foundation of excellence. They ensure that no matter what the outside world says, you are consistently growing, consistently improving, and consistently living up to the potential you carry. In the end, approval is always external, but discipline is always internal. Approval is given or withheld, but discipline is chosen. Approval comes and goes, but discipline compounds. When you chase approval, you will always feel empty, because you are depending on something you cannot control. But when you build inner discipline, you begin to fill yourself from within, and that fullness radiates outward. The applause you once craved becomes irrelevant, because you realize that the real victory lies in keeping the promises you made to yourself, in showing up even when no one is clapping, and in mastering the quiet strength of discipline that no critic, no opinion, and no lack of recognition can ever take away. Self-awareness is the foundation of self-mastery, yet it is one of the most overlooked disciplines in life. Many people are busy chasing success, pursuing recognition, and trying to control external circumstances, but very few stop long enough to examine themselves. They want to change the world around them, but they neglect to change the world within them. The truth is, you cannot master what you refuse to face, and you cannot control what you do not understand. Self-awareness is the mirror that reveals both your strengths and your weaknesses, your patterns and your blind spots, your values and your inconsistencies. It is not always comfortable because it forces you to confront truths about yourself that you may prefer to ignore, but it is necessary if you desire real growth. Without self-awareness, you live reactively, drifting through life without direction, easily swayed by circumstances and controlled by habits you do not even realize are shaping you. With self-awareness, you gain the power to pause, reflect, and redirect, making conscious choices that align with who you truly want to become. The greatest battles in life are not fought in the external world. They are fought in the mind, in the heart, and in the decisions you make when no one is watching. Self-awareness allows you to step back and ask the deeper questions. Why do I react this way under pressure? Why do I avoid certain responsibilities? Why do I seek validation from certain people? Why do I repeat the same mistakes? Without this kind of reflection, you will continue repeating cycles, wondering why life feels stuck, when the truth is that you are stuck because you have not yet identified the patterns holding you back. Self-awareness is not about judgment. It is about clarity. It is about seeing yourself as you truly are, not as you pretend to be, and using that knowledge to build a stronger, wiser version of yourself. One of the most powerful aspects of self-awareness is emotional understanding. So many people are controlled by emotions they cannot name. They lash out in anger, but underneath the anger is fear. They procrastinate on their goals, but underneath the procrastination is insecurity. They avoid risks, but underneath the avoidance is self-doubt. When you lack self-awareness, emotions become the unseen puppeteers controlling your behavior. But when you become aware, you begin to identify the root causes instead of just reacting to the surface. You realize that anger is not just anger. It might be a signal that you feel powerless. Procrastination is not just laziness. It might be a symptom of fear of failure. Avoidance is not just indifference. It might be a shield protecting you from rejection. This level of awareness doesn't eliminate emotions, but it empowers you to respond with wisdom instead of being ruled by impulse. Self-awareness also plays a critical role in decision-making. Every choice you make is influenced by your mindset, your beliefs, and your habits. Without awareness, you may unconsciously make choices that sabotage your goals. You might spend money recklessly without realizing it is tied to deeper insecurities. You might choose relationships that drain you because you are unaware of the patterns you repeat. You might stay stuck in a job you dislike because you haven't recognized the fear that keeps you trapped. But with self-awareness, you begin to notice these patterns before they control you. You start to ask, why am I drawn to this decision? Does this align with who I want to be? Will this move me closer to or further from my purpose? In this way, self-awareness acts like a compass, guiding your decisions in alignment with your highest values and long-term vision. Another key aspect of self-awareness is recognizing your strengths and your limitations. Too often, people underestimate their strengths and overestimate their weaknesses, creating a distorted self-image that either inflates their ego or crushes their confidence. Self-awareness helps you see your abilities clearly, not through arrogance, but through honesty. You begin to appreciate the skills, talents, and passions that set you apart, while also acknowledging the areas where you need growth, support, or discipline. This balance is what prevents you from living in denial or self-deception. When you know your strengths, you can build upon them with confidence. When you know your weaknesses, you can either work on them or design systems that prevent them from holding you back. Mastery is not about being perfect. It is about being aware enough to leverage what you have and manage what you lack. Self-awareness also transforms relationships. Many conflicts, misunderstandings, and broken connections come not from malice, but from a lack of awareness. Awareness of how your words affect others. Awareness of how your tone communicates more than your intentions. Awareness of how your unspoken expectations create unnecessary disappointment. When you are unaware, you project your frustrations onto others, expecting them to understand your unspoken needs. When you are aware, you take responsibility for your communication, your behavior, and the impact you have on others. This maturity not only strengthens your relationships, but also builds trust, because people sense when you are honest with yourself and willing to grow. Another truth about self-awareness is that it exposes the gap between who you are and who you want to be. This can be uncomfortable, but it is also empowering. For example, you may realize that you value health, but live in habits that undermine it. You may recognize that you want financial stability, but indulge in spending patterns that prevent it. You may acknowledge that you value discipline, but constantly give in to distractions. The gap is not a sign of failure. It is an invitation to grow. Awareness of the gap creates motivation to bridge it, while ignorance of the gap leaves you stuck repeating the same cycles indefinitely. By becoming conscious of this distance, you can begin to take intentional steps toward alignment, closing the gap between intention and action, between values and lifestyle. Finally, self-awareness is what separates reaction from response, survival from mastery. Life will always present challenges, setbacks, and pressures. Without self-awareness, you react blindly, often making choices that worsen the situation. With self-awareness, you pause, observe, and respond in a way that reflects wisdom instead of impulse. That pause alone can change the entire outcome of your life. It allows you to break cycles instead of repeating them, to grow stronger instead of bitter, and to take control of your destiny instead of surrendering it to circumstance. Self-awareness is the beginning of mastery, because once you understand yourself deeply, you gain the clarity and strength to master not only your inner world, but also the outer challenges that life will inevitably bring. One of the most destructive lies people tell themselves is that they cannot start until everything is perfect. They delay writing the book because the outline is not flawless. They hesitate to launch the business because the plan is not polished. They avoid stepping into new opportunities because they feel unprepared. Perfection becomes the excuse for procrastination, and procrastination becomes the graveyard of potential. The pursuit of perfection paralyzes because it creates an impossible standard. Nothing in life begins perfect, and nothing great is built in one attempt. The truth is, progress is what creates mastery, not perfection. Every expert you admire, every innovator you respect, every leader you follow started with imperfect first steps. Their success was not born from flawless beginnings, but from consistent progress that compounded over time. Perfection is an illusion. Progress is reality. Progress is powerful because it embraces the truth of growth. Growth is messy, filled with mistakes, failures, and lessons that cannot be learned in theory, but only through practice. A child does not learn to walk by waiting until they can run gracefully. They stumble, fall, and try again. Each step is progress, and each fall is a teacher. Adults, however, often forget this truth. They wait until conditions are perfect, forgetting that waiting kills momentum. Progress requires you to take the first imperfect step, to learn through action, and to adjust along the way. Without motion, there is no momentum, and without momentum, there is no growth. Perfection waits for the right moment. Progress creates the moment. The obsession with perfection also breeds fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection. People worry that if their effort is not flawless, others will see their shortcomings. But the irony is that most people are not looking for perfection. They are looking for authenticity, effort, and growth. The musician who shares a song with rough edges is far more relatable than the one who never shares anything out of fear of being criticized. The entrepreneur who launches a rough draft of their idea learns more in the first month than the perfectionist who spends years polishing a business plan but never acts. Fear tells you that imperfection will embarrass you, but in reality, imperfection is what educates you. Every mistake carries a lesson that moves you closer to mastery, but only if you are willing to keep moving forward. Progress over perfection also shifts the focus from outcome to process. Perfectionism is obsessed with results, how something looks, how it is received, how it is judged. Progress focuses on effort, what is learned, how consistency builds strength, and how small steps accumulate into significant change. When you choose progress, you value the process of becoming rather than the image of appearing perfect. You stop measuring success only by the finish line and start recognizing the victories in every step taken along the way. This mindset frees you from the crippling pressure of unrealistic expectations and allows you to celebrate growth, no matter how small. Progress honors the journey. Perfection only obsesses over the destination. Another truth about progress is that it compounds. One day of effort may not seem like much. One workout, one chapter written, 1 hour of practice may feel insignificant. But when stacked over weeks, months, and years, these small steps accumulate into extraordinary transformation. Perfection waits until it can do everything flawlessly, and in waiting, it does nothing. Progress embraces the small, consistent actions that create unstoppable momentum. The greatest achievements in history were not the result of one perfect act, but of thousands of small, imperfect efforts that compounded into greatness. That is why progress is always more valuable than perfection, because progress is sustainable, while perfection is unattainable. Perfection also creates a destructive cycle of self-criticism. Because the standard is impossible, every effort feels inadequate. You can write an entire book and still feel it is not good enough, create a successful project and still feel it is lacking, achieve milestones and still dismiss them because they are not flawless. This cycle breeds discouragement, burnout, and ultimately paralysis. Progress breaks this cycle by shifting the standard from "is it perfect" to "am I improving?" This single shift transforms your relationship with yourself. It allows you to see effort as valuable, mistakes as teachers, and improvement as success. You begin to measure yourself against your past instead of against an impossible standard. And this perspective builds confidence instead of tearing it down. Choosing progress over perfection also allows you to embrace vulnerability. Perfection hides. It covers mistakes, conceals struggles, and presents only the polished version of reality. Progress, on the other hand, is honest. It admits where you are, it acknowledges what you are learning, and it embraces the fact that you are still becoming. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is strength, because it connects you with others who are also growing. When you share your progress, you inspire others to begin their own, because they realize they do not have to be perfect to start. Progress creates connection, while perfection creates isolation. Progress is also deeply empowering because it puts you in motion. Motion builds confidence. Every small step you take, even if imperfect, builds trust in yourself. You begin to see that you are capable of following through, that you can create change, that you can overcome obstacles. Confidence is not built through perfection. It is built through progress. The act of showing up repeatedly, learning from mistakes, and refusing to quit creates a resilience that perfection can never provide. When you focus on perfection, you are fragile because one mistake feels like failure. When you focus on progress, you are strong because every mistake is simply another step forward. The world does not reward perfection. It rewards persistence. The most successful people are not those who waited until conditions were flawless, but those who started, stumbled, learned, and kept moving. Progress creates opportunities because it positions you in the arena, while perfection keeps you on the sidelines, endlessly planning, but never playing. By choosing progress over perfection, you allow yourself to step into growth, to experience the lessons of action, and to build a future that perfectionism could never deliver. The pursuit of perfection will keep your potential locked away, but the pursuit of progress will unlock it one step at a time. We live in a world that is louder than ever before. Notifications buzz from our phones, voices on social media scream for attention, news cycles bombard us with fear, and opinions from family, friends, and even strangers compete to shape the way we think. Everywhere you turn, there is noise. Noise that demands your focus, noise that clouds your judgment, noise that pulls you in 1,000 different directions. The challenge is not whether you have the potential to achieve greatness, but whether you can stay focused long enough to develop it. Vision cannot grow in chaos. Clarity cannot survive in constant distraction. If you want to amplify your vision, the first step is learning to silence the noise. Noise doesn't just come from the outside world, it also comes from within. The external distractions are loud, but the internal noise is often louder. Doubts whisper in your mind, fears echo in your thoughts, insecurities replay like broken records. You question your worth, your ability, your timing. You compare yourself to others, wondering if you are too late or not enough. This internal chatter becomes a prison if you do not learn to quiet it. The human mind is powerful, but it cannot produce clarity while clouded with chaos. Just as a musician tunes their instrument before creating music, you must learn to tune your inner world if you want your vision to resonate. Silence is not empty. It is fertile ground for growth. The danger of noise is that it steals focus. Every time you give in to distraction, you are withdrawing energy from your vision and depositing it into something that yields no return. The endless scroll through social media, the gossip-filled conversations, the opinions of people who have no understanding of your calling, all of it drains you. And what makes noise so dangerous is that it feels urgent, but produces nothing meaningful. You can spend hours caught up in the world's noise and end the day no closer to your goals. That is why silencing the noise is not optional. It is essential. You must become ruthless about what you allow into your mind, your environment, and your spirit, because your vision is too precious to be drowned out by distractions. Silencing the noise requires boundaries. Just as you would not allow strangers to walk into your home uninvited, you cannot allow every voice to enter your mind. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every argument requires your participation. Not every piece of information deserves your energy. You must learn to filter. Ask yourself, does this feed my vision or does it drain it? Does this build my clarity or does it scatter my focus? Boundaries are not about shutting out the world completely. They are about protecting your space so that your vision can grow undisturbed. Without boundaries, you will live reactive to the noise instead of proactive about your purpose. One of the most powerful ways to silence the noise is through intentional solitude. Solitude is not loneliness. It is focused presence with yourself and your vision. It is creating moments of quiet where the outside world cannot intrude. In those spaces of silence, ideas begin to form, clarity begins to sharpen, and your vision begins to amplify. History shows us that some of the greatest leaders, thinkers, and creators valued solitude because they understood that clarity does not come from constant noise. It comes from intentional stillness. In solitude, you can hear the whispers of your inner voice that are often drowned out by the world's chaos. You begin to differentiate between what is urgent and what is important, between what is temporary and what is eternal. Amplifying your vision also requires you to choose your influences wisely. The voices you allow into your mind shape the vision you carry. If you constantly listen to negativity, fear, and doubt, your vision will shrink. If you surround yourself with encouragement, wisdom, and inspiration, your vision will expand. This is why mentors, books, environments, and communities matter so deeply. They either amplify your focus or distort it. If your environment is filled with people who cannot see beyond the present moment, they will blind you to your future potential. But when you surround yourself with those who believe in growth, perseverance, and possibility, your vision gains strength. Noise is contagious, but so is clarity. The process of amplifying your vision also demands focus on the why behind your goals. Distractions are most powerful when you lose sight of why you started in the first place. When your vision is rooted in purpose, you are less likely to be swayed by temporary noise. Purpose acts like an anchor. It holds you steady in the storms of opinions, criticism, and doubt. Noise tells you to quit when things get hard, but vision rooted in purpose tells you to endure. Noise pushes you to conform, but vision rooted in purpose gives you courage to stand apart. The clearer your why, the louder your vision becomes, until the noise fades into the background. Another powerful truth is that silence sharpens creativity. Noise scatters your thoughts, but silence organizes them. Many of the greatest breakthroughs in art, science, and business did not happen in crowded rooms of chatter. They happened in moments of stillness where the mind had space to connect ideas. When you are constantly surrounded by noise, your mind is too cluttered to innovate. But when you embrace silence, your imagination awakens and your vision becomes more vivid. Creativity thrives not in chaos, but in clarity. By choosing to step away from the constant noise, you create room for your vision to speak louder, clearer, and with more conviction. Silencing the noise also requires courage, because the world will always try to pull you into its chaos. People will demand your attention, critics will voice their opinions, and distractions will always present themselves as urgent. It takes courage to say no. It takes courage to step back from the crowd and walk your own path. It takes courage to ignore voices that question your dream and to trust the inner voice that calls you forward. But courage is the price of clarity. Every time you choose silence over noise, you are declaring that your vision is worth protecting, that your purpose is worth preserving, and that your future is worth more than the fleeting distractions of the present. When the noise is silenced, your vision has space to grow louder. What was once faint and fragile becomes strong and undeniable. What once seemed uncertain becomes clear. Amplifying your vision is not about shouting louder than the world. It is about becoming so clear, so focused, and so aligned with your purpose that the world's noise can no longer distract you. Your vision does not need the approval of the crowd. It needs the clarity of your own commitment. And that clarity can only be found when the noise is silenced and your focus is fully invested in the path you were created to walk. One of the greatest sources of frustration in life comes from competing with others. From an early age, society trains us to measure ourselves against classmates, co-workers, neighbors, and even strangers on the internet. We are told that success is about being better, faster, or wealthier than someone else, and we internalize this belief until it becomes the filter through which we view our progress. But this way of thinking is a trap. When you constantly measure yourself against others, you are running a race that you can never win, because there will always be someone with more resources, more experience, or different opportunities. The only race worth running is the one against yourself. The only competition that truly matters is who you were yesterday versus who you are today. Growth is not about outpacing others. It is about outgrowing your former self. When you shift your focus away from competing with others and onto competing with yourself, everything changes. Suddenly, You are not concerned with how far ahead someone else appears, but with how much progress you are making compared to your own past. Did you improve your skills today compared to last week? Did you make better choices today than you did yesterday? Did you handle challenges with more wisdom and patience than you did before? These questions redefine success in a way that is both achievable and empowering. Instead of chasing after an ever-moving target defined by others, you measure yourself against a fixed standard, your own growth. This creates a sense of control and clarity because you are no longer living by comparisons that were never meant to define you in the first place. Competing with yourself also allows you to celebrate small victories that would otherwise go unnoticed. When you focus on others, you might dismiss your progress because it seems insignificant compared to theirs. You may have paid off a small debt, but then compare yourself to someone who is already financially free. You may have lost 5 pounds, but then compare yourself to someone who looks like a professional athlete. You may have launched your first small project, but then compare yourself to someone who already runs a global company. This constant comparison steals the joy of your progress, but when your only competition is yesterday's you learn to celebrate every step forward. That small debt paid off is progress. That 5 pounds lost is progress. That project launched is progress. Each step compounds, and over time, small, consistent improvements transform into massive growth. Another advantage of competing with yourself is that it creates resilience. When your standard is external, setbacks can be devastating. You look at others moving ahead while you are stuck, and you feel defeated. But when your standard is internal, setbacks become opportunities. Instead of asking, "Why am I not where they are?" you ask, "What can I learn today to be better tomorrow?" This mindset shift transforms failures into feedback. Every mistake becomes a lesson that strengthens you for the next round. Competing with yourself builds patience and endurance because you understand that growth is a lifelong journey, not a race with a finish line. Every day is another chance to outdo your previous self, to expand your capacity, and to become more of who you are meant to be. This mindset also frees you from envy and bitterness. Envy is born from comparison, when you look at what others have and convince yourself you are lacking. Bitterness arises when you feel left behind in the race against others. But when you realize that your only competition is with yourself, envy loses its grip. You begin to view others not as rivals, but as potential sources of inspiration. Their success no longer threatens you, because their race has nothing to do with yours. You can admire their journey while staying committed to your own. This creates a healthier, more fulfilling approach to growth, because your energy is no longer wasted on resentment. It is redirected into becoming better than you were yesterday. Competing with yourself also sharpens focus. When you measure yourself against others, your goals are often scattered. You try to match their pace, copy their strategies, or chase after their definition of success. This keeps you distracted and unfocused, chasing things that may not even align with your values. But when your focus is internal, you begin to set goals that are deeply personal. You ask, what do I need to improve in myself? What habits should I break? What skills should I develop? What values should I strengthen? These questions bring clarity and direction. Your focus narrows to what matters most for your personal growth, and your energy is no longer diluted by the endless race against others. There is also a freedom that comes from realizing you are your only competition, freedom from the pressure of constant comparison, freedom from the anxiety of being measured against someone else's timeline, freedom from the fear of not being enough. This freedom gives you space to grow authentically, at your own pace, and in alignment with your unique purpose. You stop trying to fit into someone else's definition of success and start crafting your own. You begin to honor your journey, recognizing that it will not look like anyone else's. And that is exactly how it is supposed to be. Your pace is your pace, your story is your story, and your progress is valid regardless of how it compares to anyone else. When you make yesterday's version of yourself your competition, you also begin to live with greater intentionality. Every day becomes an opportunity to improve, not in grand, dramatic ways, but in consistent, meaningful ones. You might read a little more today than you did yesterday. You might push yourself a little harder in your workout. You might speak with more patience and kindness than you did the day before. These small, intentional improvements build momentum. Over time, they transform not only who you are, but also how you show up in the world. Self-mastery is not achieved in one leap. It is built through daily progress, through the consistent pursuit of being just a little bit better than you were before. The truth is, you were never created to be a copy of someone else. You were created to be the fullest version of yourself. The race against others distracts you from that truth, but the race against yourself brings you back to it. When you compete with yesterday's version of you, you stay grounded, focused, and motivated. You realize that life is not about surpassing others. It is about surpassing the limits you placed on yourself. It is about becoming stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more compassionate, more resilient than you were before. It is about growth, not comparison. It is about mastery, not mimicry. It is about embracing the lifelong journey of improvement, knowing that your only true competition is the person you were yesterday.